Start of like during that recording, the entire time I'm planning, like I'm gonna ask this woman to marry me after this. So yeah, those were probably two other like really cool moments of this season. Yeah. Obviously, the beginning of it with Taylor is one I'll remember forever. So
Travis Kelce just could not resist. Less than a week after marrying Taylor Swift in front of 1,000 guests at Madison Square Garden, the man sat down behind a microphone with his brother, looked back at the moment his whole life changed, and simply could not keep it to himself any longer. He was happy, genuinely, unmistakably happy, the kind of happy that spills out even when you're trying to play it cool. And on the season finale of New Heights, that happiness came pouring out in the sweetest possible way. Here's what happened. The episode recorded before the wedding but released just days after it closed out a wild season of the podcast, one that had already featured a memorable sit-down with Tom Brady, but it was the season opener all the way back in August that Travis kept circling back to, because that episode was the one where Taylor herself appeared as a guest, introducing her new album to the world. And Travis, reflecting on it now as a married man, let the secret finally slip in the most casual, offhand way. Starting the season with Taylor, he said, was pretty epic, and then came the line that had fans everywhere clutching their chests. During that entire recording, he admitted he was planning something. He was sitting there, mic in hand, talking to his brother and to Taylor, all while quietly plotting the exact moment he was going to ask this woman to marry him. Think about that for a second. While the cameras rolled and the fans listened, completely unaware, Travis was running through a proposal in his head. He was laughing, joking, doing the podcast thing he does every week, and underneath all of it, his mind was fixed on one plan, popping the question. It confirmed something fans had suspected for a long time, ever since the engagement photos leaked and eagle-eyed Swifties noticed the faint imprint of headphones still pressed into Taylor's hair. People had pieced together that the proposal must have happened almost immediately after that very recording, and now, with his own words, Travis confirmed it. He did not just propose sometime later, he proposed right after, the excitement of the moment barely contained.
Ending the season with Tom Brady, pretty epic. Yes. Starting it with Taylor, pretty epic.
And that is exactly why he could not resist bringing it up. Because when you close out a season of your own show, when you look back at the year you just had, certain memories rise straight to the top. For Travis, the two moments he singled out as the coolest of the whole run were that Tom Brady sit-down in the Taylor episode. But even placing them side by side, it was obvious which one actually mattered. He called it a season ending with Brady and pretty epic, and then, almost like an afterthought that was anything but, he called starting it with Taylor pretty epic too, except everyone listening knew there was nothing casual about it. This was the moment, the one he will remember forever, in his own words. A man who has shared a broadcast booth with legends, who has 3 championship rings, who has been mic'd up in the loudest stadiums in the country, and the memory he chose to highlight above nearly everything else was the quiet, secret plan he was running in his head while his future wife sat across from him, unaware. It says everything about where his heart has been this whole time, because Travis did not need to bring this up. He could have let the episode pass without a word about the wedding at all. And in fact, he mostly did just that, keeping the actual ceremony private and unspoken on the show.
During that recording, the entire time I'm planning, I'm going to ask this woman to marry me after this. So.
But this one detail, the proposal planning, the secret he was carrying that day, he let it slip anyway. It was as if the happiness of being a newly married man made it impossible to stay quiet about the moment that started it all. He did not gush. He did not turn it into a big dramatic reveal. He just mentioned it plainly. The way you talk about something that still makes you smile every single time you think about it, and that more than any grand declaration is what makes it so believable. This was not a rehearsed soundbite. This was a man who just could not help himself.
Well, I mean, it's by far our most viewed episode of all time.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So here is everything else swirling around the newlyweds right now. Because the podcast moment is only one small piece of a much bigger story still unfolding. Start with something a little less glamorous, because even the wedding of the century apparently was not immune to a classic reception hiccup. Guests found themselves standing in long buffet lines once the food service began, waiting far longer than anyone expects at an event with this kind of budget. Some attendees, according to accounts that have circulated since, ended up eating standing up simply because there were not enough seats to go around. A few guests were even heard describing parts of the spread as tacky, a word nobody expected to hear applied to a wedding this extravagant. And on top of the long lines, there were whispers of a champagne shortage at points during the night, an awkward hiccup for a celebration attended by some of the most famous people on the planet.
I never understood Taylor Swift songs before, and now I do.
It is almost funny when you sit with it. A wedding with a fairy tale garden built inside one of the most famous arenas on Earth, with music legends performing and custom couture on the bride and groom. And still, somehow the thing everyone ends up talking about is the buffet line. But maybe that is exactly the point, because it is a reminder that even when you have the resources of two of the biggest stars in the world, pulling off a seamless event for 1,000 people is genuinely difficult. Catering at that scale is a logistical nightmare under the best circumstances, and squeezing it into a night with this many moving parts, this much security, this much secrecy, was always going to create a few cracks. It humanizes the whole affair in a strange way. Even the most carefully planned wedding in recent memory still had guests standing around with a plate in one hand, waiting for a seat. And speaking of things that did not go exactly as planned, there is the matter of who actually showed up, because one especially notable name confirmed he was not there at all. Charles Barkley declined his invitation, by every account, to the wedding. In a world where seemingly half of Hollywood and a healthy chunk of professional sports turned up at Madison Square Garden, Barkley's absence stood out precisely because he is the kind of larger-than-life personality who tends to show up wherever the cameras and the fun are.
Oh, you did get the invite. You didn't go?
I don't go to weddings. That's one of I don't go to weddings or funerals, but I did get an invite, and I politely declined. I love Travis and Jason, and I've only met Taylor one time. But yeah, I did get an invite, but I said, hey, you know what? That's just too much.
His decision not to attend has become its own little conversation piece. Fans and commentators alike wondering exactly why one of the most beloved figures in sports media chose to sit this one out. Whatever the reason, it adds one more thread to the tapestry of who was in that room and who, for whatever reason, was not.
I just want to hang out and play golf, and I don't want to dress up and all that other stuff. But I appreciate the invitation. It was pretty special. And I politely declined because I thought it was going to be a show.
Now, shifting away from the wedding itself for a moment, a clip of Travis's former girlfriend, Kayla Nicole, has been circulating again, timed to land right in the middle of the wedding conversation. In it, she recounts details from their past relationship, describing what she says was a difficult and painful chapter in her life. According to her own account, she has claimed there was infidelity during their relationship, and she has described feeling as though she sacrificed a great deal for Travis during their years together, even referencing financial contributions she says she made at the time. These are her own words, her own recollection of a relationship that ended before Travis and Taylor ever crossed paths. And they should be understood as her personal account rather than established fact, since none of these specific claims have been independently verified. What has made the clip resurface so widely is not necessarily its content, since Kayla has spoken about aspects of the breakup in prior interviews before. It is the timing, with Travis newly married and the whole world watching every detail of his happiness. She says she helped shape the man the world now loves, and that someone else ended up with the happy ending. Reaction to the clip has been mixed and, frankly, a little messy. Some have pushed back hard on her characterization, arguing that a past relationship ending does not entitle anyone to claim credit for who a person becomes afterward.
First things first, I just want to say a few things, because although this moment is maybe not the biggest deal in the world to everybody else, to me, it is.
Others have simply used the moment to comment on how differently public figures can be perceived depending on which chapter of their story is being told. Either way, it is worth remembering that this is one person's account of a private relationship, not a confirmed narrative, and it deserves to be treated with that context rather than as settled truth.
View this moment for what it really, really was has been empowering, to say the least.
Back to happier, more concrete territory, because there is a fascinating detail about how this wedding is being preserved for the future, and it explains so much of the secrecy that surrounded it. Taylor and Travis are not planning to share footage of the ceremony with fans on any kind of big screen or public release, at least not in the traditional sense. Instead, the couple is said to be working on a documentary, one that will cover not just the wedding day itself, but the entire planning process behind it, all the behind-the-scenes logistics that went into pulling off an event this massive. And rather than releasing it publicly, the plan is for this documentary to be sent out as a personal gift to the guests who were actually there, a keepsake for the people who lived it in person rather than a product for mass consumption. That single detail reframes almost everything about how tightly this event was controlled. Because if you understand that the couple was planning their own official record of the day, then every other security measure suddenly makes sense. The custom watermarked invitations, designed so that if any single detail leaked, it could reportedly be traced directly back to the guest who received that particular invite, were not just about preventing embarrassment. They were about protecting the value and integrity of the story the couple wanted to tell in their own words, on their own timeline. The total no-phones policy inside the venue, enforced so strictly that even close friends and family had to hand over their devices at the door, existed for the same reason. If the world was ever going to see genuine footage from inside that ceremony, it was going to be footage the couple filmed themselves, curated by them, released when and if they ever decide to release it. Even guests who were fully confirmed to attend were kept in suspense right up until the final stretch. George and Claire Kittle, for example, were asked directly whether they even knew the wedding would be held at the famous arena, and their answer captured the absurdity of it perfectly. Claire admitted they simply did not know, while George added that he had asked Travis about it the night before and was met with nothing but laughter, joking that he was half expecting to be told there would be a jumbo jet waiting on a runway to fly them somewhere else entirely. That is the level of secrecy this couple operated on. People who were already invited, already confirmed, already trusted enough to be part of the guest list, still did not know exactly where they were going until the last possible moment.
Bunch of different ways. That's the cool thing about it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So he just plays his way the best, probably of all time.
And all of that secrecy paid off in the way the actual event came together. Guests who did attend have described walking through a tunnel lined with blown-up photographs of Taylor and Travis at every age, a visual timeline of 2 entire lives leading up to this single night. They walked into a space that had been transformed so completely that one high-profile attendee, describing it afterward before deleting the post, said it did not look like the arena at all, comparing a portion of it to a lush countryside garden, draped in green and white, filled with real flowers, with rows of chairs arranged to feel intimate rather than cavernous. It was, by every account, an atmosphere built entirely around making a massive space feel personal, which lines up perfectly with the idea that the couple wanted this day preserved as something private and meaningful, not just another headline. Beyond the ceremony itself, the reception carried its own string of charming little details that guests have slowly been sharing in the days since. There was a raffle built into the night of all things, with attendees playing games throughout the celebration to earn tickets they could then use for a chance at genuinely covetable prizes, including designer handbags and even a vintage car, reminiscent of the one Taylor and Travis rode in together on their very first public outing back in 2023. It is a small sentimental touch buried inside an otherwise massive production, the kind of detail that only makes sense once you know the story behind it. And it was not the only nod to their history either. One guest shared a personalized keepsake handed out during the celebration, a delicate handkerchief embroidered with a line pulled straight from one of Taylor's own songs, a quiet love letter stitched into fabric and tucked into the hands of the people who mattered most to them that night. Even the bouquet toss carried its own sweet moment, caught by a guest connected to one of Travis's own teammates, who later posted online about feeling like the luckiest woman in the room. Every one of these small touches, the raffle, the keepsake, the bouquet, adds up to the same picture. A couple who thought through every detail, not for the cameras, but for the people they actually love. So here's the bottom line. Travis Kelce could not help himself finally admitting on his own podcast that he spent an entire recording session secretly planning his proposal to Taylor while she sat right there as his guest, calling the moment one he will remember forever. That happiness has unfolded alongside a wave of other stories from the wedding, including reports of long buffet lines and food complaints that humanized even the most extravagant celebration imaginable, along with Charles Barkley's reported decision to decline his invitation entirely. And underlying nearly every security decision the couple made, from watermarked invitations to a strict no-phones policy, was the reported plan to create their own wedding documentary, a private gift for guests rather than a public spectacle, ensuring that whatever story gets told about this day will ultimately be told on Taylor and Travis's own terms. For a couple who has spent years living under a microscope, who cannot so much as attend a football game or release an album without it becoming global news, that instinct to protect and control their own story makes complete sense. They gave the world a wedding filled with music legends, custom couture, and enough security to rival a state visit, and still, somehow, the most telling detail to emerge afterward was not about any of that spectacle at all. It was a grown man, a champion, a global icon in his own right, casually admitting that he simply could not stop thinking about marrying the woman across the microphone from him, right in the middle of doing his job. Everything else, the buffet lines, the declined invitations, the old rumors resurfacing, the carefully guarded documentary plans, all of it orbits around that one simple human truth. He knew. He always knew. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.
As Taylor Swift said, shake it off.